Policy is a driver of innovation, and smart policy can encourage scientists and engineers to integrate gender analysis into basic and applied research. On the Gendered Innovations website, we have treated the following areas: funding agencies, research organizations, including universities and their hiring committees, editors of peer-reviewed journals, industry leaders, and educators. This short video treats funding agencies, both public and private. It's important to keep in mind that sex and gender analysis enhances all phases of research, from setting research priorities, making funding decisions, establishing project objectives, developing methodologies, gathering and analyzing data, evaluating results, developing patents, transferring ideas to market, and drafting policies. Here I will recommend a 5-step evaluative framework for effectively integrating sex and gender analysis into research. Step 1 is the call for proposals. Here, funding agencies can require applicants to indicate whether sex and/or gender is relevant to their proposed research. 2, training. Funding agencies can develop and deliver training on sex and gender analysis for agency staff, evaluators, and grantees. 3, enforcement. Funding agencies need to develop evaluation and scoring criteria and enforce it. And B, review and monitor funded proposals. 4, funding agencies can offer seed grants or supplemental funding for exploring how sex and gender analysis can be added to current or proposed research. And 5, a funding agency needs an office or officer to coordinate these efforts throughout the organization. I will discuss each of these measures in turn and provide current best practices to illustrate each point. I start with the call for proposals. On our website, we list major granting agencies that ask applicants to indicate whether sex and/or gender is relevant to their proposed research. We recommend that agencies do this as a requirement for funding, not as something that is optional. And I would be happy to hear from you if I should add some agencies to our list. Agencies of note are the European Commission. In Horizon 2020, the EC writes, integrating gender or sex analysis in research and innovation helps improve the scientific quality and societal relevance of the produced knowledge, technology, and/or innovation. The EC has identified 137 areas of science and technology where gender analysis can benefit research, including computer hardware and architecture, nanotechnology, oceanography, geoscience, organic chemistry, space medicine, biodiversity, ecology, biophysics, among others. This is a first step. Other agencies of note are the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, that since 2010 have excellent policies on integrating sex and gender into research. The Gates Foundation has required applicants to consider gender in agricultural research since 2008. This was confirmed in 2013, and Melinda Gates has just launched an initiative to integrate gender analysis in all the Foundation's development work. She has published an article in Science magazine on why gender analysis is so important to this work, which I recommend to you. I would also single out the Irish Research Council for their excellent policies in this area. I particularly like their wording. The Irish Research Council requires all applicants to indicate whether there is sex and/or gender in their research, and if so, to outline how sex and gender analysis can be integrated in the design, implementation, evaluation, interpretation, and dissemination of the results. Now coming to step 2. Once a funding agency has put their requirement in place that sex and gender be integrated into research, the agency needs to develop and deliver training on sex and gender analysis for the agency staff, for proposal evaluators, and for grantees. Few researchers in the natural sciences and engineering know how to do sex and gender analysis. This has not been part of their PhD training at university. For training, I would like to point to the NIH new policies that require sex inclusion in basic research, that is, research with cells, tissues, and animals. As part of this policy, the NIH will develop and deliver training on experimental design and analysis for NIH staff and grantees. As part of training for grantees, the NIH Office of Research on Women's Health sponsored a workshop on methods and techniques October 20th, 2014. You can watch the 7.5-hour video on their website. The results will also be published. This type of workshop with top researchers on methods of sex analysis is important for the success of these new policies. NIH also has online training, and as I understand it, they will be developing this further. I should also point out that both the Gates Foundation and the Irish Research Council provide guidance and training for researchers. Step 3. Enforcement and requirements. The NIH and the Irish Research Council work with grant reviewers to enforce requirements for applicants. Step 4. Funding agencies can offer seed grants or supplemental funding for exploring how sex and gender analysis can be added to current or proposed research. A lot can be done with seed grants or supplemental funding to encourage researchers to extend their current investigations to include gender analysis. In the U.S., universities strategically offer seed grants for innovation in many fields. At Stanford, we do this for sex and gender research in the medical school. We offer PIs a bit more money to investigate the sex or gender dimension of their current research. It's a nice carrot. Importantly, NIH offers supplemental funding, these are like seed grants, to explore the effects of sex in preclinical and clinical studies. In September 2014, NIH made available $10.1 million as a catalyst for considering sex as a fundamental variable in research. Step 5 recommends that an office or officer coordinate implementing these requirements throughout the organization. At NIH, for example, the Office for Research on Women's Health is spearheading the requirement that sex be considered as a fundamental variable in research. Taken together, these 5 steps can assist funding agencies to integrate sex and gender analysis into research. Excellent research must take into account the biological difference of sex and the cultural differences of gender. The gender dimension provides a new platform for discovery and innovation in science and technology. In the next video, I will address the role of peer-reviewed journals in this process.